Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about the second chakra, the sacral chakra, also known as the Svadhisthana chakra in Sanskrit. It is located in our hips and our pelvic bowl, so it forms our sexual organs and the basis of where life is created. It is formed within the range of 6 months to 2 years. So kind of just coming out of that very root chakra stage at 6 months to the second chakra. And when you think about this in like reality terms, when you have a baby and they're finally learning to sit up, their chakras stack above each other. They begin to have alignment. There's upright connection with the world. They can see more. They can look out at other things. So once they've kind of started to learn that, they're still forming the root chakra. They're still learning how to use their body and how to create a solid foundation that they feel safe in. But this is where they start to, have desires and emotions that are tied to, I want that thing, and, pleasure. What makes me happy? What makes me feel good? I like it when mommy tickles my belly. I don't like it when daddy rubs his beard on my cheek, or I like it when my mom bounces me up and down on her knee. I don't like it when my brother makes loud noises and scares me. Things like this. They're learning to be drawn to certain things. So this chakra has a lot to do with our emotions, our desires, what we want, and what we are drawn to. Pleasure. We are drawn towards pleasure. Our body opens up towards pleasure and it shuts away from pain. So we're kind of learning that in this chakra. And also our chakra being located where the sexual organs are and where sex occurs, also desire and sexuality tie into each other. This chakra is highly to do with our sexuality, with duality, male and female, masculine and feminine coming together as one, and creation, where we create a baby, where we create life. Now, it's not just about creativity of life. There is also tied to the fifth chakra, which is like creating, art and creating masterpieces, creating certain things in our lives, visually and physically. And our desire, our passion, what we're drawn to, can inspire us to create. But the actual action of creation takes place in a different chakra, unless we're talking about the creation of life. So I hope this kind of creates an idea of what this chakra is all about. Our emotions, our feelings, and how we relate to the outside world through a lens of what we feel. I like this, I don't like that. I desire this, I don't desire that. I want this, I don't want that. This can be perverted and abused through many different lenses. So if we have any sort of abuse, that will affect this chakra. And the chakras are a system of energy. So energy doesn't have clear boundaries necessarily. One chakra being off kilter will bleed into the other chakras. So our root chakra and this chakra have things about each one that are bleeding into another and affecting each other. So if the first chakra is out of balance, it will affect the next chakra and so on. So when we think of boundaries, which is that containment, that holding on of the first chakra, like the planter we talked about, the next chakra up is the element of water. Emotions are very watery and flowy, and sexual tendencies, our ability to commingle with someone else, is a blurring of boundaries, and it has that same sort of dance of movement that occurs with lust and desire and passion. And in most cases, there are emotions attached. So an abuse to this chakra would, of course, be any sort of sexual abuse, would make this chakra be out of alignment. It would, create a sense of unsafety in the first chakra, and it would create a sense of a confusing of boundaries and a confusing of desires and a lot of guilt and shame. Another thing is if you live in a household where emotions are not taken seriously, or you are shamed or punished for expressing your emotions, that will deny this chakra proper balance and growth. Because when we repress our feelings, or we're told our feelings are not valid or we shouldn't feel a certain way, then we begin to distrust ourselves. And when we feel a certain way, we start to, kind of have this inner conflict, where that voice comes up and says, like, no, you shouldn't feel this way, and makes you feel that demon of this chakra, guilt. Makes you feel guilty for having an emotion that is genuine. Our emotions are genuine. They don't need to be judged. I was thinking about this today before I made this video, and I'm sorry, I jump from place to place because my mind constantly is thinking about how to say things in the best way. But when I first got into spirituality, it was through Bob Proctor, because I wanted to make money. That was my foot in the door to spirituality. And a lot of what they were talking about is how we can control our emotions. We have control over how we feel. And I have to say, I disagree. That's a very male-dominated industry, and that's a perspective from a lot of men do feel that they control how they feel, but it might not be in a healthy manner. I don't believe we can control how we feel. I think emotions come up and feelings are genuine, they're authentic, they're expressing something within us that is true to us. Now, you can use that as a tool and as an indicator to, as a rope. It's like someone just threw you a rope out in the water, and then you can pull yourself in and dive deeper and figure out what's at the other end of this rope. What's at the end of this emotion? What is causing me to feel this way? What we can control is how we respond, how we react to our emotions. So we can allow them to be expressed, and we should healthily express our emotions. If we're angry, finding ways to express that anger instead of repressing it is very healthy. And crying when we feel upset and laughing when we're happy, these are healthy emotions to express. And just looking at that as a clue, what is this coming from? Like if you start crying when someone makes a comment about your hair, why is that? And use that as a tool to dive deeper, instead of saying, why am I crying? This is stupid. I shouldn't feel this way. That's more feeling guilt about having an emotion. And I want to use an example specifically to me is a lot of the time, because I am in a place in my life now where I have all the things that I could have ever wanted, and I grew up very poor. Sometimes when I have a bad day and I'm feeling upset and I'm feeling down and I'm really having this emotional splurge, it's stuff that, we unintentionally repress our emotions often because we don't want to burden other people with them. So they build up and then they're released. So yesterday I had like this emotional release after I filmed the Sacral Chakra yoga flow, and I said the affirmation that it's safe to feel. It is safe for your feelings to be expressed. And then I ended up crying in the shower. So, and then I was thinking, like, you shouldn't feel this way. Look at all the things you have. Look at all the things that are right in your life. Like, why are you crying? You're feeling sorry for yourself, blah, 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 blah. So that's not really feeling safe to express your emotions. That's more like judging your emotions for occurring. So it's good to be mindful that we need to not only express our emotions and have feelings and honor the feelings, but we need to really be careful about creating judgments towards ourselves for having certain feelings or for having certain thoughts. You know, like, I shouldn't feel this way about my husband, or I shouldn't feel this way towards my child. The fact of the matter is, sometimes people get overwhelmed and they're feeling upset towards their kid. That doesn't make you a bad mom. So having guilt all the time about your feelings would be unhealthy towards this chakra. So we want to bring it into the center. Some more, I'm just going to read from the book here. Abuses to this chakra. Volatile situations. So like we talked about in the first chakra, I said there's going to be some bleeding of things. So abuses to our physical safety are going to affect this chakra just like they affect the root chakra. Volatile environments where you don't know what to feel, it's like all over the place. Like, I don't know if you've ever been around someone who is bipolar. Like, when I was a kid, my dad would be like, and we would just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and being crazy until all of a sudden it wasn't like he would start slowly getting angry. He would just snap and go off the handle. So volatile situations, neglect, coldness, rejection. Like I talked about, having that home where emotions aren't really honored. So you might have someone who's very closed off to you and they don't mirror you. Mirroring is where, like, you look at your kid and you say, I can see you're upset when they're upset. Or it looks like you're really happy. You know, you're helping your child to learn what their emotions are by mirroring their emotions to them. So if someone is very cold and closed off in their life and in their body and they do not mirror you as a child, then you can grow up very confused about what your emotions are or how to express them in a healthy way. So denial of the child's feeling states. You shouldn't feel that way. There's no reason for you to be crying. You're being a baby. Go to your room. Big boys don't cry. Things like that. And a lot of us do it without even realizing, especially towards males. So that's something to be mindful of. Enmeshment is where there's a lot of unhealthy attachment between the mother and child, or like other members of the family and the child, where there's no clear boundaries between the two people. So they start to take on each other's emotions. Overuse of playpen or restricting movement, anti-pleasure, physical abuse, and alcoholic families. So yes, I just wanted to make sure I covered my bases there, but definitely read the email as well. So anything restricting movement, let's go on that. This is an emotional environment of water, fluid movement. Water is only contained if it has a container. So this is between the two chakras, that balancing of holding and simultaneously letting go. If your roots are secure into the earth and you have flexibility, let's envision the plant again, and the wind comes along, you can blow in the breeze and you can twist and turn and move around, and the roots will keep you secure and safe, and when it's all over, you can stand tall again. If you are too rigid and closed off and hard like a robot, then when the wind comes, it's going to snap your branches off or take you down. So it's having that rooting and grounding, that containment, and that holding of our muscles, holding our body upright, so we're not just an amorphous blob on the ground, but also having that flexibility, not only in our bodies, but in our life. If we're flexible with situations, if we can adapt to change, if we can see things in different aspects and put ourselves in other people's shoes and see things through different lenses, having flexibility with our schedule, but not to the point where we have no schedule at all. You know, finding that middle ground. Having flexibility in our bodies. If we just are all strength and all we think about is containment, we would just become these really stiff people. And some people are, you can see them, they're not flexible at all, and they just walk around like all stiff, like they got something up their butt. They're very unchanging. They're probably very emotionally closed off and have a hard time expressing their emotions and really repress a lot of things. So moving our body and becoming loose and being able to stretch and be flexible at the same time as being strong brings us to that center. So the deficient, we'll talk about excessive and deficient. Deficient in this chakra would be like very closed off, very scared of change, unmoving, rigid, maybe sexually frigid, cold, emotionless, and has rigidity in the body, and potentially sexual issues within the body, like endometriosis. Whereas if you're excessive in this chakra, you might be very free-flowing, have lots of movement, lots of flexibility, be hyper-sexualized, overstimulated, have very poor boundaries where you invade other people's privacy and their boundaries and don't understand why they don't like it. You may let a lot of people into your boundaries, have confusion about what's appropriate sexual boundaries, and be like really all over the place. So a lot of movement and all over the place. Like you can't make up your mind. You have no structure. Like I said, everything ties in and bleeds into one another. So think about these things. Review the email because I'm going to list it all in there. And just take a little time to sit still and focus on what aspects of excessive sound like me, what aspects of deficient sound like me, what happened in my childhood, how was my household, was it safe to feel, were my feelings rejected or denied, what was sex discussed like in our house, was it completely taboo, were my parents open with me and talking about sex in a healthy way, was sex considered evil or immoral, was it the opposite where we had no boundaries sexually and our parents would like do it on the couch, you know, when we're home, or did like, you know, was there abuses that happened? These are all things to think about when considering this chakra. For me, I've been very excessive in this chakra in the past. So I had a very deficient root chakra and then a very excessive sacral chakra. So it's like the chakras will always try and balance each other out. So I've always been like all over the place, poor boundaries, hypersexualized, and I've always been very flexible. Like my body's been flexible, but without the strength to support it. So that can cause injury as well. So if you're very flexible and moving and you adapt very easily to change, it's like a survival mechanism. And it's been good for me in a lot of ways, being able to adapt to change, because my life was constantly changing. We probably moved like 30 times in my childhood. So I never got to root and find stability and safety, and there was volatile situations outside of me. So having the ability to adapt to different situations and different personalities and become an empath. An empath is like a survival mechanism that you develop as a child, so to keep yourself safe. Like, whoa, that person has bad energy, stay the fuck away from them today. That kind of thing. So these are all adaptations that I created in my life as a result of an unstable, unsafe environment, and just like the ideas that were perpetrated around sex and things like that as a child. So I hope that kind of puts into perspective how these can kind of work together and how one thing affects another, and how our childhood, how we're raised, and what happens really affects our ability to move in this world, our ability to relate to others, our ability to love ourselves, our ability to feel confident and empowered. So I really hope this helps. I hope this made a lot of sense to you. If it didn't, then definitely message me and ask any questions. You can ask questions in the group as well, and I'll be there to help you. Have a great week. Bye.